7.9 on the top. We're going all out of order in terms of numbers. The numbers, what section we're on, doesn't matter much. But what we're doing today is really our last step in our whole kind of factoring process. And what we're going to be doing today is actually going all the way through factoring and then solving. So to be able to do that, we have to have a little refresher on zero product property. No?
I know, but like when just
I'm ready to go.
how would they know when the building's there?
So recorded. I don't know. Probably when everyone else gets up and leaves.
That's why I'm late. Are you putting that in there?
Yeah. All right, I'm ready to go. Shiny, everybody quiet. This is going to be short. We're only going to do these top 3 problems and the bottom 2. So you can get through it quick if you're all quiet and ready to go. So zero product property was if we said we had 2 numbers. We said, okay, let's call it, we used variables. We said A and B. If we multiply A and B together and it equals 0, we can make a kind of a conclusion. The conclusion that we make is that either A or B, it must equal 0. Because the only way we're multiplying 2 numbers together and we want to get to 0, the only way to do that is if one of the numbers is 0. So you practiced this before we went on spring break. I would have given you something like example A, where we have these 2 binomials being multiplied together, x minus 2 times x plus 2, and we would say solve each polynomial. And how we do that is we know that since these 2 things are being multiplied together and it's equal to 0, we know that one of them has to be 0. One of the parentheses will go to 0. So we did this. We said, well, it could be x minus 2 could be equal to 0, or x plus 2 could equal 0. And then we solved so we could get 2 answers for x. So one of our x's could be a positive 2, and one of our x's could be a negative 2. Got those just from solving. Add 2 to one side, subtract 2 from the other. We do the same thing if we look at example B. Again, we have 2 binomials being multiplied together. So we could say, all right, 2x plus 4 is equal to 0, and then 3x plus 3 is equal to 0. So to solve, we could subtract 4 from both sides. So 2x is equal to negative 4, and then divide each side by a positive 2. So we could say, all right, one of our answers, x could be equal to negative 2. Our other answer, we could take 3x is equal to negative 3. We divide each side by 3. X could be equal to negative 1. Again, we could get out just 2 whole numbers as an answer. There's also the possibility that when we do our zero product property, we get out fractions. So that's what example C is all about. We know that since it's equal to 0, either 2x plus 5 must be equal to 0, or 4x minus 3 is equal to 0. And we solve the same way. It's a 2-step equation to solve. If we do the one on the left, we'd have to subtract 5 from both sides. So we would say 2x is equal to negative 5. And then we divide by 2. So x could be equal to -5/2. Again, you could leave that as a fraction or a decimal. The other one, we would add 3 to both sides and then divide by 4. So x is equal to 3/4. So using the zero product property is another step that will add to our whole factoring we did the last 2 days. And the key word here is that now instead of just factoring, now we're solving. So steps 1 through 5 are what we went over the last 2 days. Step 6 is using the zero product property. Using the zero product property is just another way of saying solve which is another way of saying find your x values. And when we use the zero product property, it's always going to be equal to 0. So looking at our examples, we're going to do this together. We're just going to do the first, we're going to do example A and B because I think we'll catch on after that. They're right now we cannot solve. Right now they're just set up to be factored. To make them ready to solve, we have to put equal to 0. On the other side, on example B, we have to put equal to 0 as well. Now they're ready to be solved. So we're going to go back to A, and we're going to go through all 6 of those steps. First step is to check if we have a greatest common factor. Well, we have x squared, 6x, and 8. So our greatest common factor would just be 1. So we're not going to divide anything out to start with. So we're going to go to step 2, which is setting up your x. So we'll do it off to the side here. On the top, we would put an 8. On the bottom is a 6. And we fill in either side. Multiplies to 8, but adds to 6 is 4 and 2. All right, now we do step 3, which is splitting up our middle term using our 2 numbers we filled in. So it'll be x squared plus 4x plus 2x plus 8. Now we can go through and start factoring by grouping. We group our first 2, we group our last 2. Pull out your greatest common factors of each group again. We've done this for many days now. This is an x, this is an x. This we can factor out of 2, we can factor out of 2. So when we're writing this out in our factored form, we'd have x, parentheses. This would be an x plus 4. We close our parentheses. We have a plus 2 out in front. Close our parentheses. This is an x plus 4 as well. We got our match. We keep going forward. Group together again, x plus 2, x plus 4. All right, a really easy thing to forget to do is not forget to write down this equal to 0 with everything. All right, that equal to 0 is important because that's telling us that we need to solve. So go back and set everything equal to 0. And we're just keeping that equal to 0 all the way through. Now that our 2 things are set equal to 0, we can use our zero product property. So everything above the squiggly line is things you already know how to do. Stuff, we spent multiple days on this stuff. From here down, we just use our zero product property to get 2 answers out for x. So we set x plus 2 equal to 0. And then we set x plus 4 equal to 0. And then to solve, we would just subtract 2 from one of them. So x could be equal to negative 2. Or x is equal to negative 4. Again, this is our last layer of kind of our factoring by grouping, setting up and solving our x. Our last step is to use zero product property at the very end to get two answers out for x. So if you could do zero product property, you can do everything we've done the last 2 days, you should be in good shape. You just got to remember to solve at the end. That's what the equals to zeros are there for. All right, if you want a challenge, you can go ahead and do problem B by yourself. Otherwise, I'll just go through and this will be the last example that we do on the notes. So I'm going to check just to see if I can make my life easier, to see if I can factor out anything. I cannot. So I go straight to my x, and I'm going to write in orange to make it a little more fun. So we would take our a times our c, so we'd have a negative 30 on the top and a negative 1 on the bottom. So we have to multiply to negative 30, but add to negative 1. That'd be negative 6 and a positive 5. You could find that on your factor sheet if you needed to. Look at 30, the factors of 30. We know 30 has to be negative, so one number on the side has to be negative. We split our b term to negative 6x plus 5x minus 10. And then we start grouping. Group, 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 group. My first parentheses, I can factor out a 3x from both of them. And my second parentheses, all I can take out is a 5. So this will look something like 3x, parentheses, what's left over is just an x and a minus 2. So my other parentheses, I should have left over an x and a minus 2 as well, which is what I got, x minus 2. So then we go 3x minus 5, x minus 2. And hopefully you're better than me and you didn't forget to put your equals to 0 each time. All right. It takes some habit to get used to doing that. But it makes sure that when you get to the very end, kind of triggers you to say, all right, I need to get out my two answers for x. I need to solve with ZPP. So to solve with ZPP, we set 3x minus 5 equal to 0. We set x minus 2 equal to 0. So
Positive 5.
Yes, plus 5. Good catch. Plus 5. Because I factored out a positive 5. So it doesn't matter which one you solve first. The easier one is just x is equal to 2. You just add 2 to both sides. This other one, you have to subtract 5. So that's why I wrote minus 5 instead. And then divide by 3. So x is equal to negative 5 over 3. So that's all we're going to do for notes, because I think, from what I see, a lot of people have just moved on to the yellow sheet, which is good. That means you're feeling confident, ready to go. One thing that I know a lot of questions are going to be on number 3. You get big numbers out to set up your x. So if you just want to do it now with me, it's 396 and 45. When you have a big number like that, the best way is to go through and guess and check and see, okay, what if I take 2 times 196 is 396, but that doesn't add to 45. You could say, okay, well, 6 times 66 is 396, but that doesn't add to 45. So you can keep guessing and checking numbers until you get something that works. In this case, it'll be 12 times 33 is 396. When you add them together, it's 45. So that's what I'll give you a start to number 3.